All right, so strap in, everybody, because this deep dive is a wild one. We're talking about the Tesla Cybertruck explosion outside Trump International Hotel in Las Vegas on New Year's Day.
Wow. Wow.
No, it's nuts. I mean, you probably saw the headlines. We're going to go deeper here, dig into an article from the Associated Press called Soldier Shot Self in Head Before Cybertruck Exploded Outside Trump's Las Vegas Hotel, officials say.
Okay.
Published just yesterday, January 2nd, 2025.
Hmm.
And this case is fascinating because, well, imagine this. A highly decorated Green Beret, a truck packed with enough fireworks for like 3 4th of Julys,
Oh, wow.
and a possible link to the recent attack down in New Orleans.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we got a lot to unpack here.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in for sure. The thing that really gets me about this case is like the disconnect between whom Matthew Livelsberger, the 37-year-old soldier who was driving, seemed to be, and then what actually happened.
Right.
I mean, on paper, you've got a distinguished military career, multiple Bronze Stars, one for valor under fire deployments to Afghanistan, Ukraine, Tajikistan, Georgia, Congo. I mean, the list goes on and on.
Wow.
The guy was practically a poster child for, courage and service to his country.
Right.
But then this explosive incident happens. It's just,
Like a puzzle where the pieces just don't fit right.
yeah, exactly.
You had the Cybertruck, which was loaded up with fireworks, fuel canisters. It's not your average grocery run,
Yeah.
And then choosing that location, Trump International Hotel,
Yeah.
it just feels like a very deliberate, very intentional.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Authorities are saying this was planned, but the motive is still a mystery. And it raises a chilling question. Could this have been a much bigger attack?
Right. And what stopped it from being worse?
Yeah.
Thankfully, the damage to the hotel itself was minimal.
Right.
7 people had minor injuries. But given this situation, it's almost a miracle that there wasn't more damage.
Yeah. It is kind of a miracle. And this is where I think the Cybertruck itself might have actually played a role.
Really?
Yeah. That steel siding, everyone talks about how strong it is.
Yeah.
Well, that might have actually contained a lot of the blast.
Oh, wow.
And from what investigators have been able to figure out, it seems like the explosion vented upwards
Interesting.
instead of outwards. So that
Yeah.
definitely would have reduced the impact on the surrounding area.
So the vehicle that was meant for destruction kind of helped to limit the damage?
Yeah, a little ironic, huh?
It really is. It makes you wonder, given his military background and all the explosives he had, was a bigger, more destructive outcome, really, his goal.
It's a tough one to wrap your head around.
Okay, so we have this highly decorated soldier, seemingly at the top of his game, who drives a truck full of explosives into a very famous target and then takes his own life.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
It really challenges how we think about people, especially people who dedicate themselves to serving and protecting others. We associate military personnel with strength, with being stable, with resilience.
Right.
But this case really flips that whole narrative on its head.
It's a powerful reminder that even people who look strong and capable can be fighting their own battles that we know nothing about.
Yeah.
Early reports are suggesting that maybe a relationship issue with his wife could have been a factor.
Okay.
But that just adds another layer to this already very complicated situation.
Yeah, it does. And it reminds us that people's motivations are complex. A relationship breakdown might contribute, but it's probably not the whole story.
It's like you see the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
You see what's on the surface, but there's a whole lot going on underneath that we don't see.
Yeah, you said it perfectly.
Mhm.
And figuring out all that stuff underneath the surface is really important for understanding this case. And I think understanding how seemingly normal people can end up doing extreme things.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's get into some of those complexities. What are the investigators looking into right now? What pieces of the puzzle are they missing?
Well, they're looking at it from all angles, like the forensic teams. They're combing through the debris, trying to figure out exactly what kind of explosives were used.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like, was this, professionally assembled or something he put together himself?
Interesting.
That can tell us a lot about how much planning went into this.
So it's not just what blew up, but how it was made.
Exactly. It's like a fingerprint. It can give you details beyond just how much damage it did.
Wow.
They're also looking into Livelsberger's digital footprint,
Oh, like his computer and phone and
That's
stuff?
computer, phone, internet history, all that stuff.
Makes sense.
See if there's any clues there. Like, did he research explosives? Was he part of any online groups that might give us some insight into his thinking?
And what about the people who knew him? Did anybody notice any red flags?
Yeah, this is where things get a bit more complicated. From what they've gathered from family, friends, colleagues, there weren't any obvious warning signs. People describe him as a good dad, a loving husband, a reliable soldier, someone who seemed to have it all together.
It's strange, isn't it?
It is.
This difference between how he appeared and what he did, it makes you wonder what was going on in his head. Could this have been a sudden thing, or was it something that built up over time?
It's a question that comes up in a lot of these cases.
Right.
We tend to think that what we see of someone is the whole picture. But human psychology is so much more complex than that.
Right.
Stress can build up silently. Anxieties can fester. Maybe there were signs, but people missed them or didn't think they were important.
That's a scary thought. You mentioned earlier that this could have been a much bigger attack. What leads investigators to think that?
Well, a few things.
Yeah.
First, the amount and the types of explosives they found in the Cybertruck.
Okay.
It suggests a level of planning that's more than just a suicide attempt.
So you're saying he could have caused way more damage if that had been his goal?
Yeah, that's what they're thinking. Second, his Green Beret training. He would have known exactly how to create the most destruction.
Right.
These are elite soldiers. They're trained in unconventional warfare, demolition, strategic planning.
Wow.
They know how to use what they have to cause maximum damage.
And the third thing?
The location. Trump International Hotel. This wasn't just any building. It's a very symbolic target with a lot of political and economic significance.
Right.
It's like he wanted to make a statement to send a message that went beyond just personal reasons.
It's chilling to think what could have happened if things had gone differently. Are they working under the assumption that he acted alone?
For now, yeah.
Yeah.
Everything points to him acting alone. But they're not ruling out the possibility that someone else might have influenced him or inspired him,
I see.
especially with it happening on New Year's Day and the similarities to that attack in New Orleans.
You're talking about Shamsuddin Bahar Jabbar, right? The guy who drove a truck into that crowd in the French Quarter?
Yes, 14 people died.
That's awful.
And here's the thing. Both Livelsberger and Jabbar were at Fort Liberty at some point.
Oh, wow. Fort Liberty, the huge army base.
Yep. Coincidence? Or something more?
Yeah, that's a big question.
It's something that's keeping the investigators up at night.
I bet.
There's no direct link between the two events yet.
Okay.
But the timing and that military connection, they can't ignore that.
Of course not.
So they're looking into Livelsberger's deployments, trying to see if there's any overlap with Jabbar or anyone who might have influenced him.
It's almost like there's this whole new type of threat out there. Individuals with military training, access to weapons who can just disappear into a crowd. How do you even begin to address something like that?
It's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Security agencies around the world are dealing with this.
Yeah.
These lone wolves, they're incredibly hard to catch because they often work alone. You don't see the usual signs like you would with a terrorist group.
Right. So what's the solution? More cameras everywhere. Keeping a closer eye on veterans.
It's not that simple. I mean, those things might help. But the real issue is getting to the root of what causes someone to go down this path.
Okay.
Things like social isolation, economic hardship, exposure to extremist stuff online.
Yeah.
All of that can lead to someone feeling alienated and angry, and that can make them more likely to be radicalized.
It sounds like there's no easy fix. It's a multi-layered problem.
It is, and it requires a different way of thinking.
How so?
We need to go beyond reacting to these things after they've already happened
Okay.
and focus on prevention.
So what does that look like?
Things like building stronger communities, promoting inclusivity, providing support systems that address the things that lead to extremism.
So creating a world where people feel like they belong and that they matter.
Exactly. Instead of feeling like they're on the outside looking in.
This case has really brought up a lot of questions about security, personal freedom, the complexity of human behavior. I mean, where do we go from here? What can we learn from this tragedy?
I think first we need to admit that we don't have all the answers.
Yeah.
We need to be willing to ask tough questions, to challenge what we think we know, and to really talk openly and honestly about what drives people to do the things they do.
Right.
This case, with all its unanswered questions, it really shows us that even with all the information we have access to, there's still so much we don't understand about people.
That's a humbling thought.
Yeah.
It's also a call to action, though, isn't it? If we want to prevent things like this from happening again, we need to dig deeper, understand better, and most importantly, connect with each other in a real way.
I completely agree. This isn't just about catching the bad guys. It's about understanding what makes someone become a bad guy in the first place.
Right.
And that means changing our approach, from reacting to being proactive, from isolation to connection.
This is giving us a lot to think about. I think we need a moment to process all of this.
Yeah, I think you're right. We've talked about the explosion itself and what might have been going on with Littlesburger, but there's this bigger picture, what this all means for society. Yeah. I think this whole thing really brings up some tough questions about how we balance security and freedom. How do we keep people safe, but also protect everyone's individual rights?
It's a question that's been around forever, but this case makes it even more complicated.
Right.
We have the very real threat of these lone wolf attacks that are so unpredictable and can be so destructive.
Yeah.
But we also don't want to live in a world where everyone's suspicious of everyone else and everything we do is being watched.
It's like walking a tightrope.
Exactly. And the internet makes it even more complicated because it's such a powerful tool for connecting people,
Right.
but it's also a place where extremism can spread.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's easier than ever for people to find others who think like them and get exposed to dangerous ideas and information.
So how do we deal with that? Do we just put more cameras everywhere, start censoring the internet? Those don't seem like good solutions.
They're not easy solutions, and they come with their own problem.
Right.
More surveillance might help catch some bad actors, but it also means less privacy, and there's always the risk of abuse.
Yeah.
And censorship might stop the spread of some harmful ideas, but it also limits free speech and might just push those ideas underground.
So is there another way?
I think we have to start thinking about security differently. It's not just about building walls and making more rules.
Okay.
It's about creating a society where people feel connected and valued and like they have a voice.
I like that.
It's about addressing the problems that create fertile ground for extremism, like poverty and inequality and discrimination.
It's about getting to the root of the problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We need to build communities where everyone feels like they belong, where they have opportunities to succeed, and where they feel empowered to make a difference.
That makes a lot of sense. This brings us back to mental health, especially in the military. It seems like Liebelsberger was really struggling, even if the people around him didn't realize it. What can we do to better support our veterans and active duty personnel?
I think the first step is to get rid of the stigma around mental health issues in the military.
Yeah.
People need to know that asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness. We need to change the culture so that it's okay to admit when you're not okay and to encourage people to reach out for support.
Absolutely. And it's not enough to just talk about it. We need to provide real resources and support systems.
Exactly. Things like affordable and easy access to mental health care support groups, community outreach programs.
And we can't forget about the families.
Right. They go through so much too. Providing counseling and respite care and financial help can make a huge difference.
We've covered a lot of tough stuff today, but I want to end on a positive note. This whole thing has been really unsettling, but it's also gotten people talking about these issues, which is important.
I agree. It's a terrible reminder of the human cost of extremism, but it's also a wake-up call. We can choose to learn from this and work to build a better world.
A world that's more compassionate and understanding where we invest in our communities and where things like this are less likely to happen. And to everyone listening, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We encourage you to keep learning about this story and to talk about it with others. And let's all work together to create a better future.
Well said. It's been great being a part of this conversation.
Until next time, stay curious, stay engaged, and stay hopeful.